back on those years. I don't even want to tell you about them. The shame, the humiliation, the lie we lived, she and I. And then sometimes, she would be up at dawn, driving to London, shrieking to that flat of hers, like an animal to its hole in the ditch, coming back here at the end of the week after 5 unspeakable days. For Max Lundy Winter, his first marriage is a disgrace to him. As he explains his marriage to the beautiful, yet deceitful Rebecca, we find that her beauty cannot cover up the ugliness of her life. From Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. Oh, I kept my side of the bargain all right. I never gave her away. Her blasted taste is what made Medley the thing it is today. Half the things you see in the drawing room and the rooms today was never here originally. The drawing room, as it is today, the morning room, that's all to her, to Rebecca. And so we lived, month after month, year after year. I accepted everything because of Medley. What she did in London did not touch me because it did not hurt Medley. She was careful those first years. There was never a murmur, never a whisper. But then little by little, she began to grow careless. She would ask her friends down here, and I would have 1 or 2 of them at a mix-up party on the weekend. So at first I was not quite sure, not quite certain. She would have picnics down at the cottage in the cove. I warned her. "What's it got to do with you?" she said. I told her she could see her friends in London, but Medley was mine. She smiled and didn't say anything. Then she started in on Frank. Poor, shy, faithful Frank. He had came to me one day and said he wanted to leave Medley to take another job. She was always going down to his house, trying to get into the cottage. Poor wretched Frank, who had not understood, who had always thought we were the normal, happy married couple we pretended to be. I accused Rebecca of this. We had a sickening lonesome scene. She went up to London after that and stayed there for a month. When she came back, she was quiet at first. I thought she'd learned her lesson. Bea and Giles came out for the weekend, and I realized then what I had sometimes suspected, that Bea did not like Rebecca. I believe in her funny, abrupt, downright way that she saw through her, guessed something was wrong. It was a nervy sort of weekend. Giles went out sailing with Rebecca, while Bea and I lays in the lawn. And when they came back, I could tell by Giles' rather hearty manner and the look in Rebecca's eye that she had started it on him too, as she had done to Frank. I saw Bea watching Giles at dinner, who laughed a little louder than usual and talked a little too much, and all the while Rebecca sitting there at the head of the table, looking like an angel. Rebecca grew cunning again. Her behavior was faultless and outwardly. But if I happened to be away, while she was here in Medley, I could not be sure what might happen. There had been Giles and Frank. She might get a hold of anyone. She had a cousin, a fellow named Jack Favell. She used to have this fellow Favell down to the cottage if ever I was away. She would tell the servant she was going sailing and would be back before morning. Then she would spend the night down there with him. Once again, I warned him. I said if I found him anywhere on the estate, I'd shoot him. He had a black, filthy record, and I would not stand for it. She forgot to blaspheme, and I noticed she was looking paler than usual, rather nervy. And I wondered what the hell would happen to her when she began to look old and feel old. Then one day she went up to London and came back again the same day. I did not expect her. I dined that night with Frank at his house. We had a lot of work on at the time. I came back after dinner about 10:30. I saw her scarf and gloves lying on the chair in the hall. I guess she'd gone up there, down to the cove, and I knew then that I could not stand this life of lies and filth and humiliation any longer, and that things had got to be settled, one way or the other. I thought I'd take a gun to frighten the fellow. sprang both of them. I saw the light in the cottage window. I went straight in. To my surprise, Rebecca was alone. She was lying on the divan with an ashtray full of cigarette stubs beside her. I began at once about Favelle. She listened to me without a word. We have lived this life of lies and humiliation long enough, you and I. This is the end. Do you understand? What you do in London does not concern me. You can live with Favelle there or with anyone you like, but not here. Not in Medellin. Suppose it suits me better to live here. You know the conditions. I've kept my part in our damnable bargain, haven't I? But you've cheated. You think you can treat my house and my home like your own sink in London? But by God, Rebecca, this is your last chance. You're right, Max. It's time I turn over a new leaf. She looked very pale, very thin. She began walking up and down the room. She looked like a boy from her styling kit, a boy with the face of a Botticelli angel. Have you ever thought how damned hard it would be for you to make a case against me in the court of law, I mean? If you wanted to divorce me, do you realize you've never had one shred proof from the first? Everyone believes our marriage to be a success. What about Frank? What about Beatrice? What kind of story could Frank tell against mine? And don't you know me well enough for that? As for Beatrice, wouldn't it be the easiest thing in the world for her to stand in the witness box as an ordinary jealous woman? Oh no, Max. You'd have a hell of a time trying to prove anything against me. She stood there watching me, rocking on her heels, her hands in her pockets, and a smile on her face. Do you realize I could get Danny as my personal maid to swear anything I ask her to swear? And for the rest of the servants, in blind ignorance, would follow her example and swear too? They think we live here in Medellin as husband and wife, don't they? And so does everyone else. All your friends, all your little world, well, how are you going to prove that we don't? She sat on the edge of the table, swinging her legs, watching me. Haven't we acted this part of loving a husband and wife rather too well? I remember watching that foot of hers, and its striped sandals swing back and forth. My eyes and my brain began to burn in a strange, quick way. We could make you look very foolish, Danny and I. Still, that foot of hers swinging to and forth, that damned foot, and his blue and white striped sandal. Suddenly, she slipped off the table. She was standing in front of me, one hand in her pocket, and she was still smiling. If I had a child, Max, neither you nor anyone in the world could prove that it wasn't yours. It would grow up here in Medellin bearing your name, and there would be nothing you could do. And it would give you the biggest thrill of your life, wouldn't it, Max, to watch my son grow bigger day by day, and to know that when you died, all would be his. She waited a minute, rocking on her heels. Then she lit a cigarette and stood by the window. She began to laugh. God, how funny. How supremely, wonderfully funny. Well, you heard me say I was going to turn over a new leaf. Now you know why. They'll be happy, won't they? All the smug locals are your blessed attendants. It's what we've always hoped for, Mrs. De Winter, they will say. And I'll be the perfect mother, Max, just like I've been the perfect wife. None of them will ever guess. None of them will ever know. She turned around and faced me, smiling, one hand in her pocket, the other holding a cigarette. When I killed her, she was smiling. I fired right at her heart. The bullet passed right through. She did not fall at once. She stood there, looking at me, that slow smile on her face, and her eyes wide open.